What about some video game history? I mean, aside from Call of Duty, we know that because you said a while ago, Call of Duty is really what helped you spring your channel. I would even say that's what made you become a gamer as an adult, right? Or did you play anything earlier than that? Or
as an adult, well, do you want me to kind of start gaming it?
Just your video game history through the time, if you want to. This is all about you right now today, man.
All right. Well, we had probably the first home game system I had was Pong. Not in the 70s. It was an old, like a really old Pong in the 80s, but we had it. Then we had like an Intellivision. It was basically like an old Atari, thing from the 80s. But
yeah,
those were
I actually had an Intellivision, and it was weird. It had the number pad, and it had like this weird dial on it, and the two buttons, one on each side. But it actually had better graphics and stuff than the original Atari 2600. It was like an upgrade, but it wasn't a successful one because it was way more expensive. So, but I had both an Atari and an Intellivision. Didn't really have much to do with them when I was little, though. So.
Yeah, I played them here and there, but they weren't really. I mean, it was kind of cool, but it wasn't like something like. It was more like just one of those two toys. I was more, toys that you play a little bit, but that's it. It was like, this is kind of neat, but I was still more into like comics and playing with my Transformers and stuff. But back in those days, back in the 80s, like, we would run home and stuff, like, make sure we didn't miss, our favorite cartoon show, like Transformers. I love that. I'm getting off track, though. But anyways, video games. We're on video games. So, but what really first got me into video games was Nintendo. Everybody, I'm sure, that's into video games was around in the 80s and old enough to play them in the 80s. I'm sure I know you had an original Nintendo.
Oh boy, did I. And I had some great parents who bought me plenty of games. That was my system. I didn't get into the Sega all that much. Nintendo was my thing as a kid. Nintendo, Super Nintendo, bunch of games, from Mario to Metroid to Excite Bike to you name it.
Excite Bike.
Probably my favorite game on the system is a little game called Chrysalis. It's a kind of a Zelda-like, but more like if Zelda and Final Fantasy had a kid back in the day and made this awesome new action adventure game. That's what Chrysalis would have been. I love that game. It's fantastic. But anyway, we're on you, man. Sorry.
That's all right. No. That's cool. But yeah, that's super. And I got a system that came with the cartridge that had Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt on it with the laser light gun thing. And I played Duck Hunt, of course, a little bit, but it was more. I was like on Super Mario until like I beat that. It probably took me at least 2 or 3 months to beat it, probably. But then I was finally able to get to the point where, of course, using warp zones, where I'd be able to go from the beginning until World 8 and get through it, in one. Well, you had to do it in one setting because you couldn't save Super Mario Brothers,
right?
So, but I was able to get it like done in a short setting and stuff. I didn't. Once you got into the finished World 8, then it basically started over only harder. All the mushrooms were beetles and stuff, but anyways, yeah, Nintendo. We didn't really get a lot of games free, but I had a few games and stuff that I really liked and everything. When I moved to California and we stayed with my uncle and my cousin had a zillion games, so I got to play a lot of his games and everything, which was cool too. So we ended up sharing games and stuff. And then, of course, in the early '90s, I got a Super Nintendo for myself. When I got my own, this was actually probably my first adult experience on my own with video games. Was I bought myself a Super Nintendo. It wasn't like brand new, but it was still like the latest Nintendo. It was before the Nintendo 64 came out.
That's interesting. So your first console that you bought for yourself was the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Mine, the first console that I ever bought for myself was I think it was the PlayStation 1, and then of course the PlayStation 2 later on. Yeah. But anyway, it's cool. Just cool that that first console. I think And I felt good about the PlayStation because I didn't buy my PlayStation at launch or anything, but this story, I was thinking about not playing video games anymore, actually, because I had a Super Nintendo, and yes, I had all these RPGs, but I was like, is this all video games is going to be forever? Is Mario, racing kart games, and RPGs? I'm starting to get out of it. But then I went over to a friend's house, and he had Metal Gear Solid, and I booted up Metal Gear Solid to play it, and was just blown away with the mature themes, the cinematic tone. It was the first thing, and I was like, oh shit, it was, fully voice acted. Oh shit, video games are growing up with me, and yeah, I'm gonna buy me a PlayStation, and hopefully there's more games like this, and of course there was, but anyway.
That's cool. Actually, probably the first game that I ever played that had like an actual speaking voice, but it was only like one line at the beginning of the game. This was actually a PC game. This was the first time I'd ever played any PC games that were beyond like Oregon Trail or things like that. Or text-based games like Zork and stuff like that. Yeah, if you know what, I didn't even forgot all about those. Those were even before I had a Nintendo, but the Apple IIe and stuff at school. But anyways, I only ever played those at school. So I almost don't even consider those video games at all because they were kind of more text-based. Some of them had like graphic pictures with maybe some basic animation. But anyway, so yeah, a lot of times when I talk about my video game history, I always forget about those. But and then a lot of times I forget about my late 80s, early 90s foray into really early PC gaming. But anyways, the voice, the game with the first actual audio, somebody speaking, was Space Quest 3 from Sierra. Which I love that game. In fact, I just so I could play that game because I'd already bought it, but I couldn't play it because I didn't have enough memory. I only had 256K in my computer, and it needed 384K. And I convinced my mother that I needed that extra memory because it was important because I had this word processing program that I was using and stuff, and that I needed it for that.
Oh, you're such a liar! Hey, no. I remember my stepdad, Mark, around the same time, around 93, 94, stuff like that.
This was earlier than that. This was like 89, 90.
You're a little bit older than me, but I remember being introduced to Wolfenstein 3D as my first PC gaming experience. And then from that, I played some of the King's Quest games. I played Prince of Persia, the original Prince of Persia. But then I remember mowing lawns all summer long to buy a PC because Doom. And I wanted to play Doom, and I needed a 486, and I had a 386, and I had to. My stepdad was like, "No, I'm not doing this, man. That's expensive, and you're going to have to prove that you're responsible enough to take care of it." So, I had to mow lawns for that 486, man. It was crazy. But anyway, it's just, I get nostalgia about things like that because, yeah, you're right. A lot of the times we forget some stuff out of our video game history. We don't forget it, but we forget to include it because a lot of the times we just talk about consoles and we forget, oh, yeah, what I was doing on that computer was gaming too. But, yeah.
Right. Exactly. Now, here's the thing, though. That computer didn't have a mouse. The whole thing did everything on keyboard. But I played Space Quest. I also played King's Quest 4 on it. My first game on it was a game called...
That was the first one I've ever played, the Perils of Rosella, man. That's a good adventure game, too, man. Point and click.
Yeah, I love that, too.
Played a lot of Leisure Suit Larry's, but... Again, I
never got to play any of those.
14 or 15 before I was even allowed to touch them, but yeah. Anyway.
But yeah, my first game on that computer was a game called Sentinel Worlds, which was by a company called Electronic Arts. Some of you may know it as EA now. Evil. evil ass. But
well, they
but it was called,
used
like,
to be because I remember Sim Ant and Sim City back in the day, back before they were, back when we actually remember. There was a time when games came out and they were complete. There wasn't any DLCs. There wasn't any day one patches. What you got was what you got, and it either worked or it didn't. And but yeah, it was just a totally different time.
That didn't work back then.
No, not really, but
well, except for Space Quest 3, actually. Well, and what I was talking about, the 256 and 384, that's memory. Because I still use the same computer, but I ended up having to go to Radio Shack to plug in this. Well, we bought the memory, but it was this chip with the leads coming out that you had to plug into the motherboard. But you had to be real careful about it, so I ended up having Radio Shack do it for me because I was afraid I was going to bend the leads or whatever, because you had to use tweezers and plug it in manually. And I still have this computer, actually. I have it in storage. I haven't turned it on since I put it in storage in 1999. This computer was made in 1988, the Tandy 1000 SL. But I still have it in storage. The last time I turned it on, and it included a monitor, computer, keyboard. Pretty much that's it. It had two 5 1/4-inch floppy drives.
Yeah, I remember.
The last time I think I've told you about it before, but the last time I used it, it still worked. So as far as I know, I don't know if it still works or not, but I've got it in storage.
But talking about games weren't broke back then, or you didn't have any broke games. Quality assurance teams used to actually do work back then. Of course, everything wasn't tethered to the internet either, but...
Right. This computer actually had a network thing on it called, I can't remember what it was called, maybe PC Link or something like that, but I didn't have a modem or nothing for it because the internet did exist then, but it was like not like it is, definitely not anywhere near like it is now. Like a friend of mine across the street had a Commodore 64, which I'm sure everybody knows about that, and he used it to be able to connect to the internet, chat with people, get on what they called the BBS sites and stuff, and download things and stuff. He was able to download porn. He found, but it wasn't anything like how it is now. It was like very pixelated, and but it was there.
Well, I remember when did we get American Online? I must have been 15 or 16 when we first got when we first started getting internet and it was becoming a regular thing. And Doom 2's here, we can play that online actually, but as soon as like you'd be playing a game with a friend over the internet connection, right? And then as soon as somebody picked up the phone, kicked you offline,
Yeah, and then of course I got in the mid '90s. Doom came out, and the first time I saw that on like being displayed in a store, I was like, "Oh man, that's awesome!" I never, actually had a computer that could play Doom myself, but I was blown away by it. I'm like, "Oh man, this is awesome!" Then of course I got Nintendo 64, which I thought was cool. Loved Super Mario 64. Loved Zelda Ocarina of Time. Never really got to play Majora's Mask. I didn't have like the extra add-on you needed for it and stuff, so I never really got to play it.
The only reason I bought a Nintendo 64 was for Ocarina of Time. That's the only reason I had one, man, was for that game. But there were some other really cool experiences over there. I had really put off buying it because I was more into my PlayStation, and so I didn't think that I needed it, and then sure enough, Ocarina of Time came out, and I was like, man, I guess I'm gonna buy me a Nintendo 64.
And of course, I never had a PlayStation back then. I'd seen some people with PlayStation stuff, but I didn't really get to see a lot of the games that they had back then. And then late '90s, got my first PC that actually like connected to the internet and had 32 megabytes of RAM and 4 megabytes of video memory and a 3 gigabyte hard drive. So it could connect to dial-up internet.
So were you PC gaming on from then, or did you did back
For
in
a
the
little
time,
while.
did you go PlayStation 2 any or?
I myself never had a PlayStation 2. My stepson had a PlayStation 2, and I played some games with him, like Spider-Man 2, which I loved, Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction, which I loved. Those are probably about the only couple of games I actually played, because the other games he had were mostly like wrestling or anime games that I didn't really care about. But I liked. I thought it was cool. Though I thought the graphics were a lot better and everything. When I got the PC though, my first PC that I connected to the internet and could actually play some actual 3D rendered, fully rendered hardware, rendered graphics. I started getting into the Star Wars Jedi Knight series, first I played Dark Forces, which is basically a Star Wars like Doom, same
Right.
kind of graphics as Doom. But it had
Kyle
Katarn. Kyle
Katarn,
Katarn, yeah. It had a preview though on the disc or it had a demo of Jedi Knight, and it had the first 3 levels of Jedi Knight. So I ended up never even finishing the first Dark Forces, because like once I found the demo and was playing that, I was like, oh, this is so much better. I want this game. I don't even care about this one, because this one looks like crap. This one looks better, even though like it looks terrible now because of the blocky graphics. But it was actually like hardware rendered and stuff. So it was way different than the software 3D rendering of like Doom and Dark Forces. So I ended up getting that game, and I loved it. And then I found out like it had online multiplayer. And I was like, well, and I actually found that out by playing a multiplayer demo of it, because somebody I was talking to online knew about it and everything. So I started playing that, played it, then found mods for it. Just like I'm obsessed with Skyrim mods right now, I was obsessed with Jedi Knight modding back then. I was like, whoa, you can like download things that people have made their own levels and stuff. Like, you can play this game forever. You never need to buy another game, because there's something always going to be different about it. Because you can get new content made from. But then, of course, Jedi Knight 2 came out, and Jedi Academy, which had better graphics and everything. Those graphics actually hold up a little bit better compared to the original Jedi Knight. But they had mods too, and and all that. So my PC gaming days were pretty much Star Wars games. I had like maybe a few other games, mostly like superhero kind of games, but not too many Myst. I had Myst, Riven, and Myst 3 Exile. Loved those games. So there was those and everything. But then in the mid 2000s, games just started being, even though I'd gotten a 2, 3. Actually, I built myself a better PC in 2002 that was better than the PC I had, so it was able to handle games better. But then even games started getting too rough for it in the mid 2000s, and I didn't have the money to upgrade and stuff like that. So it became like I kind of got to the point where I was like, I can't afford to buy the kind of computer that I want can really play games good that I want to play. So why don't I get a console? Well, and it wasn't even really that an intentional thing to do that, because my first foray back into consoles was actually the PlayStation Portal, the PSP.
Mm-hmm.
And then which I got that for Christmas in 2005, or was it my birthday? One of those two things. And then I got the PS3 in 2007, but it wasn't even intentionally to get a game console. It was, we got our first HD TV in 2007, and I wanted something to play HD content. I wanted to watch HD movies and stuff like that. And at the time, you still had HD DVDs, but you also had Blu-rays.
It's very short-lived, right? The Blu-ray player, and believe it or not, the PlayStation 3 was the cheapest.
Yeah, the cheapest.
It was cheaper than Blu-ray players.
Right, it was. But I thought about, now HD DVD players were a bit cheaper too. There was I was thinking about an HD DVD player that was like $250, and I was like, But then I was like, but then there's Blu-rays. You got some movies on HD DVD, you got some on Blu-rays. So which one is the ones that I want? Like, do I want the movies that are on HD DVD, or do I want the movies on Blu-ray? Because that was like a issue back then. I don't know how many of you remember that. I'm sure some of you do. I'm sure you remember that, Stan. So I'm like, well, which one's going to win? Like, because you remember the VH. Well, you may not remember.
I remember that too. VHS and Betamax.
War. So it was like which one do I choose? Which one's going to be the one that's actually going to win out and everything? So I was having a tough decision, and then I saw the PlayStation 3. And then I was looking at it and everything, and it was, they had the $500 80 gigabyte, the $400 40 gigabyte version. And then I'm like, because I also had looked at Blu-ray players that were much more expensive. There were some maybe about the same price, but then I'm like, wait a minute, with the PlayStation 3, I can watch Blu-rays. There's like other things you can do. It has a web browser. It has media and stuff. It has games. And even though I wasn't like super hardcore gaming probably at the time, I still liked playing games. Mm-hmm. So I was like, it's got games, so that's a bonus. So there's lots of things you can do with this. And I also found out at the time you could boot into Linux on it and use it like a computer. And I actually did that with it before they took that functionality away in a later update, which I was mad about, but I did the update anyway because I wanted to be able to connect to PlayStation Network. I guess I could have probably, but I don't want to digress on that. But but I'm like, so it's like, but then I ended up cheaping out and going with the $400 one instead of the $500 one, which I regret because it was half the size hard drive. You only got a 40 gig instead of an 80 gig, and you couldn't play PlayStation 2 games, which I wanted. There were some PlayStation 2 games I wanted to be able to play because my stepson's PlayStation 2 didn't work anymore because you know how kids are their stuff. But anyway, so yeah, so there was that. So I didn't initially get it just for gaming, but it was like now that I had it, I could get games for it. I actually bought a game with it. I bought Marvel Ultimate Alliance, the first one. Mm-hmm. And which I actually, I liked it. It was kind of cool, but I was like, And I got Ridge Racer, which I liked better. I loved Ridge Racer. And then a friend of mine at work was telling me about, you got to get Call of Duty 4, man. And I'm like, I don't know. I've told this story. I've even told it on YouTube. But anyways, I wasn't too much into. I was thinking I wasn't going to be too much into a military shooter kind of games. So like more sci-fi or fantasy or stuff like that. But I was like, okay, I'll try it out and everything. I was blown away, and then got hooked on Call of Duty, the multiplayer stuff. So pretty much I was always playing that. Although I did throw in Burnout Paradise and the Uncharted games and stuff because I loved it. And the first time I got to play Uncharted was actually a demo of Uncharted that they had on PlayStation Network, and I loved it. I'm like, I got to get this game. So I got it. Actually, I got it about the same time I actually bought Call of Duty for myself because I actually rented it first. Rented Call of Duty 4 first, loved it, finished it in a week, and got to play some of the multiplayer and saw how bad I sucked, but I still loved it anyway. And then I bought Call of Duty 3 later because it was $25, and I played it, loved it too, and it was the multiplayer was way different on it, but I liked it a lot. But then later on, I actually bought Call of Duty 4 myself and Uncharted. Loved Uncharted, loved it. But of course, it was a single player game, and even though I played it 2 or 3 times, played it once, then went back, played it again, and then played it again.
Right. And you've pretty much been with Call of Duty since the Modern Warfare up until now. So what kind? What kind of games are you playing now?
Well, I've kind of not been playing Call of Duty so much. I've got Black Ops 3 and everything, and I like it and everything. But I don't know, with the Treyarch games, even though I like them, I get a little burnt out on them after a little while. Although I'm kind of getting, I think, burnt out on Call of Duty kind of overall. So I played a little bit. Of course. Yeah, even though I've mostly played Call of Duty, I have gotten to play some other games, and especially since I started streaming, I've probably gotten to play war games since I started streaming. Then before I was streaming, but I got Fallout 4 last Christmas. And I had previously played Fallout 3 on PlayStation 3. I never really finished it, though. I only got so far. And I guess it's a game that's really in-depth. And one of the reasons why I played Call of Duty all the time, because you could just jump in and out of it when you only had limited time and stuff.
Right.
Oh, there was a period where I had a lot of time, but I was always playing. And I got actually pretty good. But
the Bethesda, the RPGs, they're very a whole lot larger in scale, and it takes a lot of time. I understand that.
It takes more commitment of time.
Yeah.
Or it can. I mean, you can kind of like play it in small breaks and stuff, but yeah. But once I started playing Fallout 4, I pretty much played it for like 6 months. I was still playing some Call of Duty in with it too, but then I finally just went to like just playing Fallout 4, and I finished it back in June.
Something like that.
And now I'm playing Skyrim, and of course, I kind of blame Stan for this, but I was just going to play the vanilla Skyrim. But then it's like, oh, but you know what? They got the Skyrim Special Edition, and guess what? I got the Legendary Skyrim, so I'm going to get the Special Edition for free. So maybe I'll just wait until the Special Edition comes out. And then Stan's like, well, you know, you can use mods and make Skyrim look like the Special Edition now. And I'm like, oh, okay, so I don't have to wait. So then I started looking at mods. Now, I found this, I found Real Vision ENB, and it looks great, but it, like, really brings my system to its knees. The game's, like, playing at, like, 20, maybe around 20 frames per second. So it looks great, but not very smooth for gameplay. So then I'm like, well, let's try another solution that kind of fixes some of the problems with the vanilla game, and it makes it look better, but isn't so crippling on my system and everything. So then I found the Step Project, which is a guide that gives you step-by-step install order of specific mods and everything. So I went through that and everything, and it worked perfect, great, and everything. But it's still, even though like the textures and things and some of the things were fixed, it still didn't look as good as like the ENBs could make it look. Although I've got like there's a new mod that I've actually been using since last week, called Skyrim Reloaded, which they have an Oblivion version, which basically makes it look nearly, not quite, but nearly as good as an ENB without the load, where I can still play smoothly without any problems and everything, and it looks really good. I really like it. But I've been working on the mods, like, even while I was still playing, before I finished playing Fallout 4, and I kind of went crazy and everything. I'm actually to the point where now I'm just kind of fine tuning any things, kind of basically getting performance. I'm happy with my mod setup that I've got now. And if I do want to add mods, I'm using Mod Organizer, which easily lets you switch from different profiles. You can play vanilla Skyrim unmodified with the click of a button. You can click this profile with this order of mods, and it uses the same mods in each profile, so you don't like have to reinstall the mod each profile. But anyways, I'm kind of going off. But anyways,
let me reel you in.
This is actually this is a topic video I might actually make, is my modding experience with Skyrim. But but anyways, yeah. So I'll go more into that. But anyways, that's kind of up to the point now. And as much as I've said, that's pretty much still a summary, because there's probably a ton of things
There's a ton of things you missed out. Anything else that we missed today on you, man?
Unless you want like some of the more boring details. Something that you may or may not know is that I haven't really been into it for a long time. Just, I don't know, I guess, having a family and having kids, it kind of, drains you of certain creative ability sometimes, but or you just don't have the energy always. But another passion of mine has always been creative thing. I have a creative passion for writing and filmmaking, which just has kind of fallen by the wayside for like years now and everything. But making, I've always been interested in like writing. I used to like write all the time, and read. When I'd like to. I always liked drawing too when I was younger. As an adult, I really didn't draw as much as I did when I was a kid. And with some training, I probably could have gotten pretty good. So that might be something, once the kids are all grown out and moved out and stuff, and I get back into doing the creative things I want to do, like writing, filmmaking, maybe even get back into, trying to be an artist, just doing those sort of things and stuff. Those aren't things that really show on YouTube very much or whatever, but it's another kind of like a back burner passion that I'm kind of hoping that one day in the future I'll actually have time to pursue, those things and stuff eventually.
That's pretty cool. All right, well, let's see. That's pretty much TechGladiator. That's been our topic for the day. We're gonna have to wrap it up pretty soon. Is there anything that you wanted to ask me or anything else you can think of?
Well, I know you like video games, and I only recently found out that you like to play guitar.
I do.
Yes, I revealed that. Of course, he's probably going to cut it out.
No, that's all right. It's more of a private thing for me. But
right, it's a private thing. Yeah, and for me, a lot of times writing was private, but it was something that I wanted to eventually maybe become professional at. But yeah, you have some things that are just you. It's just exactly. Right. And I know you like music. We don't really talk a lot about music, but I know you like music. I don't know. I mean, I guess know what kind of music you like from the playlists and song requests and stuff. But outside of, and of course, we like a lot of the same kind of geeky movies and sci-fi and everything. Obviously, we share video games, but what sort of interests do you have that would be non-geek related, like
not
things
many.
that not too many.
Not too many.
All right, well that's cool because I don't have really too many outside of geek related stuff either.
No,
myself.
man. I mean, that's been a part of me for so long. It's been a part of my world for so long. Comic books, TV, movie, music, video games, and it's stuff that I've always enjoyed, and I can go on rants about like what it was like back then and what it's like now, and tell you how nostalgic it's been and all these other things. But really, there's not too much I'm into outside of that. Of course, I'm into my family, and that takes up the rest of my time. So anytime that I do have, I not really into cars or anything like that. Or I used to be into cars, used to be into girls a whole lot, man. But then, like I said, you start settling down, you got your family thing going, and you just gotta, what can I do that I'm not going to get in trouble? Well, Mama never yelled at me when I did this when I was little, so I'm gonna do this. So don't have a whole lot of time or a whole lot of room for anything else. I am very passionate about some of the things that you don't talk about on YouTube or around video games, like politics and religion and stuff. You don't talk about that stuff. Of course, I started that new series, the Real Talk series, where I'm not really taking a side. I'm just talking about saving free speech before we destroy it for ourselves. And I'm very passionate about that. But other than that, man, nah. Don't really have a whole lot of room for anything like that outside of my geekdom.
Well, and that's actually something important. I mean, free speech is important in a lot of ways today. I feel like that's threatened, not necessarily by the government per se, but almost like by people in the media and social media.
I'm never worried about the government coming and taking my free speech from me. I'm worried about me taking it for myself or someone on my equal playing field accusing me of being a bigot or a sexist or something that can be pretty damning, and so no one would want to listen to you anymore. So and that's something to be very scared of. But anyway, and when are you going to start uploading to this YouTube channel?
I'm gonna try to work on something. I'm still trying to plan something. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do, but I want to try. I'm gonna work on that this weekend. While you're working at your day job, I'm gonna. And since I don't really stream on the weekends, I'm gonna try to. Now I do get my my other kids this weekend, but I'm going to try to do something. I'm going to try to do something, figure out something this weekend.
And if it doesn't come out within the next week, guys, you can guarantee. We can guarantee that we'll be recording another one of these episodes next week, right? Another episode of the Interstellar Podcast, and really, guys,
just got to figure out what to do about this light that.
Oh, it's fine.
Why are they shot? It's J.J. Abrams' fault. He likes all these lens flares on the thing and stuff. Come on, J.J. Just take that light somewhere else, okay? It's in,
But anyway, guys, that's been our first episode of the Interstellar Podcast, getting to meet TechGladiator. Thank him for being here and a part of this. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe on this video. We love your faces, guys. And until next time, have a good one. Peace.